Bloodborne. Wow, if I had to describe this game, it would be within a single statement. A gothic Victorian action RPG with an at first unknown and unseen Lovecraftian underbelly about blood, death, and, as the name implies, bloodborne illness infecting the people, and discovering the darkness of learning the Eldritch truth. Now, as a game, Bloodborne is a novel take on an already set-in-place idea. In the year 2014, From Software, Bloodborne's developer, as well as the developers of the legendary Dark Souls series, had just released the largely debated sequel to Dark Souls, Dark Souls 2. At the time, Dark Souls had become something of a global phenomenon and had turned from rough underground gem to refined mainstream masterpiece. Not much longer after the release of Dark Souls 2, many were eager to see what From Software had in store for them next, even if the main opinion on Dark Souls 2 at the time was not a relatively positive one. This was all coming to a culmination as suddenly, as if almost out of the blue, a new leak had been found teasing a new project From Software was working on, and the only name we had to call it by was Project Beast. This leak was huge for the community, as it gave a new level of hype to what many in the community had dubbed Beast Souls. As the hype for Dark Souls 2 was lowering more and more by the day, a new level of interest was being expressed within the Souls community towards this new IP that had been randomly leaked at the time, and it was growing in popularity at a rapid pace. The entire community had latched on to Project Beast, and almost immediately speculation and theories began to fly around at blazing speeds through the community, ranging from it being a weirdly different sequel to Demon Souls, to being a slightly removed Dark Souls title that hadn't yet been uncovered. Either way, this set the Souls community on fire, as we had a new world that Hidetaka Miyazaki was making, and we were more ready than we had ever been to delve into this new world hatched from Software's odd and extensively collective brains. That same year, at E3 2014, we had finally been given a new shred of hope that this leaked idea, known only as Project Beast, was actually going to be given fruition, and it came blazing the namesake of Bloodborne. This was amazing, as we had finally seen the true darkness we were waiting for in this new From Software title. Or so we thought. But we were not at all prepared for what we truly were going to experience within the dark and blood-stained world of Bloodborne. Now, as we delve a little into the multi-layered onion that is Bloodborne, I want to first say that this game is extremely deep in terms of its lore. It may seem like a lot, and it's enough for me not to be able to delve fully into the intricacies of the lore in this video unless you guys genuinely want to see that, and if that's the case, then please let me know in the comments. I won't be delving into all of the lore in this video, but I will be taking some of it if it's needed for context in certain parts of the video. With that out of the way, let's get to the onion that is Bloodborne. Now, on the surface, this game may seem very intimidating, from its dark and gloomy setting to the difficult combat and the onslaught of enemies you're put in front of very early on. It's not surprising to see why this game was praised and hated by many people at the time, depending on the player at hand. But, either way, games journalists and Dark Souls veterans alike were blown away by the literal breath of fresh air this game was for the Souls community. Unlike Dark Souls 1 and 2, this game was fast-paced. Faster paced than many were expecting, and to that same end, it was not surprising to see the level of reviews talking specifically about the learning curve this game presents within its first few hours. And that's where I'm going to start today, with combat. Alright, I know it sounds weird for me to start with this, but just trust me, it'll make sense farther down the line. The combat in this game is fast. Very fast. As I said before, this game is much different than From Software's previous titles, so it's only fitting that they'd not only set their flag in a new area, but go ahead and make a new combat system for it too. The combat in this game does have lore significance, since your healing ability comes from the blood of others as you fight. After getting hit while fighting, you can quickly attack back at the aggressor and gain health back that you've lost to ensure that you won't die quickly. It promotes a more aggressive playstyle while you progress through the game, which was, at the time, a very jarring update and change to those who had gotten very good at the slower style of combat that they were used to in Dark Souls. You use vials filled with blood to heal during combat, and you can find these around the world and off of the enemies that you fight as you play. On top of this, you have a gun! And this gun fires a bullet type known as Quicksilver bullets. These bullets are helpful to fight the beasts throughout the dark streets and damp fields of the city you play in, Yharnam, as well as using one of the most interesting gameplay mechanics in Bloodborne, bullet parrying. Bullet parries are a somewhat obscure mechanic to newer players, but it's one that can make certain parts of the game much easier if you're aware of its ability to slice down groups of enemies and deal massive damage to bosses if used correctly. These are the main source of high damage in really short amounts of time, since they're always followed up by the biggest damaging attack at your disposal, Viscerals. Viscerals are basically a high DPS and a short time attack that causes you to reach into a man's stomach and rip it out like a heart in Mortal Kombat. These are the gameplay mechanics you can expect from this game, but that's not all the tools that you have at your disposal as a hunter. The main weapons you use in your right hand are your bread and butter in Bloodborne, and they all have a hidden secret. All weapons in Bloodborne have a trick form, opening up a new moveset and range of movement depending on what weapon you use. This does have lore significance, as since it refers to the Hunter Workshop and the trick weapons made in said workshop for use by the hunters on the night of the hunt. My personal favorites are the Chikage, the Simon's Bowblade, and of course, the cannon.
God!
Next up, let's talk about the world, since the world around you in Bloodborne is extremely beautiful in a very dark and spooky kind of way. From the gothic, blood-soaked streets of Yharnam, Cainhurst Castle, and Yahar Gul, to the dense and dank Lovecraftian almost hellscapes of the fishing hamlet and the nightmare of Mensis. This game is dripping with atmosphere in almost every possible corner of its overworld. No matter where you go, there are NPCs to meet, enemies to fight, and bosses to slay in the name of the hunt. Throughout the world, you will uncover more of the depth to this onion as you play and progress through the multitude of enemies and boss fights that you can encounter, learning more about the sickness born from a remedy made of blood for the people of Yharnam to become stronger, which eventually turned out to be their downfall due to the illness that had spread, killing most of the population of Yharnam and turning many into the beasts that you fight as you move throughout the city. After some more progression, you come upon the Forbidden Woods, which is the last bastion of resistance before you uncover what's really going on in Yharnam after fighting a boss known as the Shadows of Yharnam. This boss is pivotal, as it leads you to believe that everyone you meet is becoming sick, and you have no idea what will become of you after you defeat them. Yet, once you finally triumph against all three of them, you're greeted with something that nobody at the time expected to see: the small library and last surviving remnants of Björgenworth, and the dark secrets that lay within this humble little college of scholars who fell prey to a power that many cannot comprehend without the help of insight. Now, let's talk about insight for a minute, since it's a mechanic that a good chunk of the player base didn't understand that well at the time, and even ended up taking many people over 15 hours before they truly understood what it was for. Insight is a type of currency in Bloodborne that actually changes the game itself as you play, depending on how much of it you have. It can physically alter the world around you, and this also has a reason due to the lore of what insight is used for and how it ended up being the downfall of the College of Björgenworth. Insight is the physical representation of becoming closer and closer to understanding the Great Ones and the Eldritch Truth. This is further represented by the stat changes that occur during the game when spending or gaining insight. When gaining insight, your resistance to frenzy is lower, and your beasthood stat is also lowered, meaning that your brain is more susceptible to the Eldritch Truth and the intricacies of which it toys with the human mind due to its vastness. When spending insight, you gain more beasthood and subsequently a higher resistance to frenzy, due to you casting out the Eldritch Truth and being closer to becoming beast-like because of this change. In the Hunter's Dream, your so-called hub world throughout the game, after gaining a single insight from any source, you're greeted by a once motionless doll who now speaks to you and allows you to focus your blood echoes into strengthening yourself and your resolve as you progress through the game. These stats are as follows: Vitality, Endurance, Strength, Skill, Blood Tinge, and Arcane. Each of these stats have differing effects on your character, and each allow a somewhat moderate level of character customization throughout your playthroughs of Bloodborne by spending blood echoes to add points to each of these stats. Want a heavy weapons build? Build Strength and Blood Tinge for both your melee and gun weapons. Want to build a high DPS setup at the expense of your health being drained? Level Skill and Blood Tinge to pick up the Chikage, or build Strength and Blood Tinge and pick up the Blood Letter from the Old Hunters DLC. All of this is to say that customization of builds is the name of the game, so to speak, as you slice, dice, and carve your way through Yharnam. Next, I want to quickly hit on the bosses, arguably the best part of the experience of this game. The varying level of difficulties that each boss in this game present are a welcome challenge to add a healthy level of stress to the game. It presents an opportunity to employ what you've learned throughout your journey through Yharnam. From Ebrietas, daughter of the Cosmos, to Father Gascoigne, to the Cleric Beast, to Gurman, this game boasts some of the most challenging and most interesting boss fights in the entire series, and I want to talk about one in particular that I still believe is one of From Software's best boss designs across their entire library, Ludwig, the Holy Blade. Ludwig is the first boss of the Old Hunters DLC, and other than Orphan of Kos, which is the final boss of the DLC, is one of the hardest battles you'll come across in your pilgrimage across Yharnam. This battle literally begins in a pile of corpses as he stands hunched out of said pile. He is depicted as a half-horse, half-human made from the many corpses strewn about the room, all resting in a massive dripping pool of blood. He stands against you, seeming to have been overcome by his beasthood and entirely voting to spend his energy killing you, and you enter a fight with him. After defeating him once, he is reawoken by his so-called guiding moonlight, a large sword forged with the look of a galaxy full of stars. He looks into it, the sword filling him with a resolve he almost entirely forgot that he possessed. And he stands once again, this time more human-like and in an upright position, clutching his moonlight greatsword and ready to face you for one final time. Once more, he is defeated. He falls, and you are allowed to progress. If you return to the boss arena later, his head is still there, and you can kill the head, dropping his moonlight greatsword, which you can use for the entirety of the game. I think I'll delve into the lore of this fight more in my lore video, but trust me, it's good. So, to end this lovely look back at one of my favorite games of all time, in fact I would call it my favorite game of all time, let's talk about a more recent addition to the world of Bloodborne, the Chalice Dungeons. These have a huge part of the lore of Bloodborne, but I'll get into that in my separate lore video later. These are procedurally generated dungeons in which you look for a lever in a dungeon full of enemies and loot, and fight a boss at the end of the level to progress to the next layer of the Chalice Dungeon. The system was exploited by a group of Redditors a few years ago called r/Tomb Prospectors, who were able to make whatever they'd like to happen in a dungeon happen through the power of save editing. Finding high-level materials and weapons early, extremely easy blood echo farming, they've got a chalice glyph for that. The most popular of this group of glyphs is a glyph called CUMMFPK. No, we're not talking about it. A chalice in which you walk through the first door you see, look to your left, and watch an unloaded NPC in the distance die to gain 83,000 echoes, and not only that, but it can be repeated for easy millions of echoes early, although I wouldn't really recommend this experience for new players if you'd like to enjoy the game and its immersive experience your first time around. At least that's my opinion. In the end, Bloodborne is a hallmark of gaming that stakes its own claim in the realm of From Software titles and blazes its own trail that's soaked in blood, sweat, and cosmic tears. Thank you for watching. Hey, so I kind of wanted to jump in here at the end of the video and just quickly run over a few little housekeeping things that I feel like a lot of people, or at least I need to get out of the way. Firstly, this video would not have been possible without the help of Boss Fight Database, which is where most of the main fight footage that you saw was coming from. So thank you very much to that. I'm going to link all these people in the description, by the way, because this video would not have been possible if not for these people, whether they know it or not. I'm going to absolutely put them into the description. This is all, most of the shit in this video is them, not me. I also want to credit VodiVidya for making just some incredible content and being one of the reasons why I wanted to sit down and do a video essay, especially on one of my favorite games of all time that I still to this day have played, and literally because of this video in the middle of a second, trying to think of the exact playthrough I've done, but I'm pretty sure just on this account, it'll be like the 5th playthrough of the game I've done just on that account, and that's purely just because I've played it multiple times on other accounts too. Because this game is super special to me, and I'm literally going to get it tattooed on my body at some point because I care about it that much. And I also wanted to quickly thank Sony. I'm going to credit them in the description too because the intro is from one of their old Bloodborne trailers, and it was a really cool edit, and I thought it would be fun. But again, I want to put out there that most of the property you see in this video is not mine, so under fair use, I'm going to put all these people in the description and have you go check them out because it would not have been at all possible without them. And at the same time, I also think that you guys should definitely just go and have a good time with this video if you can. And if you really enjoyed it, and you actually want to see my Bloodborne lore video, then please let me know, because I kind of want to make that video, but I also don't know if you guys want to see it. If you do, please let me know. I also think that this is a good starting point for me, because I'm going to try and at least be not like consistent, like I'm going to try and make content every single week. That I don't have that kind of time, but I want to try and make some more content because I enjoy doing it. And in fact, editing and all the things you see on this video are a small portion of what I'm eventually going to do as a job. So I definitely want to get better at it. And if you would like to see it, please, again, let me know in the comments. But in all, thank you very much for watching. This is a very big passion project of mine, and I really hope you enjoy it. So if you did, drop a like, all that fun stuff, and see you guys in the next one. Later.